Over 60% of Canadians have no workplace pension. That is because many employers do not want the legal or administrative burden of offering one. These costs can be prohibitively high, and the benefits inordinately low for small business with a limited budget and only 5 or 10 employees. Let us consider or create an example. Joe and Martha Stevens are a married couple without a pension plan. He owns a corner store, and she works as a restaurant manager. Neither the restaurant nor the corner store has enough employees to justify the cost of running a pension plan for their people. It is true that RRSPs help as an option, but some people find them too intimidating or time-consuming to establish. On average, each Canadian has about $18,000 in unused RRSP room. But what if thousands of Canadian workers from these kinds of businesses could pool their benefits together in order to achieve the bulk buy savings that come with a pooled plan? That would spread the risks and costs amongst a larger number of people. And that is exactly what the pooled, registered pension plan offers. Canadians will be able to buy in bulk and get better purchasing power. All of a sudden, the Joes and Marthas and millions of people like them who are on their own can join forces and secure affordable pensions. The design of these plans will be straightforward, with a simple enrollment and management. A third-party administrator, normally a bank, insurance company, or existing pension plan, will be responsible for the administrative and legal duties. What a relief for a small business owner. These plans will also be subject to the standard pension rules that exist for plans across the sector right now, unlike group RRSPs, which have no such similar standard of regulatory practice. The opposition parties oppose this idea because it is a private sector solution. They believe that government should run and operate everything. They particularly oppose the fact that these pooled pension plans will invest in the stock market. What they fail to realize is that the entire pension system, public and private, relies heavily on the stock market already. Consider the Canada Pension Plan. 49.6% of the Canada Pension Plan is invested in equities or stocks. These stocks can only pay income into the CPP out of their after-tax profits. Liberals and NDP want to raise taxes on the very businesses that the CPP invests in. The result will be increased pressures on our public pension system. For example, the CPP owns $59 million of Bank of Nova Scotia shares. When that company profits, so does the CPP, and ultimately so do the millions of Canadians that rely upon it. The CPP also owns $13 million in TransCanada shares. Now, why does does TransCanada ring bells in this place? Because TransCanada is the same company that is attempting to build the Keystone Pipeline, which admittedly would profit that company, but would, by definition, also profit its owners, of whom $13 million is represented by the Canada Pension Plan and the 17 million Canadians that are invested in that plan. The opposition, which opposes this pipeline, is attacking a company that is literally paying its profits into the CPP fund. Now, they are also attacking workplace pension plans, even though they don't realize they are doing so. Take the Canada Post pension plan. During the debate over the strike, the postal strike, members of the Democratic Party simultaneously demanded that the existing pension plan for male workers be bolstered and that business taxes go up. These concurrent demands are painfully ironic. The top 5 holdings in the Canada Post pension plan are the Toronto Dominion Bank, Royal Bank of Canada, Bank of Nova Scotia, Suncor, and Canadian Natural Resources. Banks and oil companies. The twin villains in every left-wing storyline pay dividends into the pension fund of these unionized workers. These dividends come exclusively from after-tax profits. That means you tax these profits more, pensioners ultimately get less. On January 1st, 2012, the final installment of our business tax cuts took effect, dropping the rate from 15 to 22%. That's a one-third reduction. By contrast, the NDP election platform proposes to increase the business tax rate from 15 to 19.5%, a one-third hike. That's a $9 billion tax increase on job creators in which pension funds are invested. Liberals propose a similar hike on these job creators. That would drastically reduce the after-tax earnings left to the pension funds that own these shares. We should celebrate the fact, Mr. Speaker, that workers are invested in capital markets. It is good for everyone involved. People grow their retirement savings, while their money provides investment capital to companies that create jobs. But the benefit is not just economic. It is also societal. Politicians always like to divide people along socioeconomic class, workers versus capitalists. But the two are increasingly becoming one and the same due to direct or indirect share ownership by workers. The old utopian socialist dream was for workers to become owners of the means of production through a process of forced collectivization, nationalization, and expropriation. In an ironic twist of fate, it was the capitalistic stock market, and not the state, that made workers into business owners. Pooled pension plans, tax-free savings accounts, lower taxes on businesses and workers give Canadians ownership over their own destinies. And herein lies the sharp difference between this side of the House and that side. They want to turn workers against business owners. We want to turn workers into business owners. That is the hopeful, uplifting message that our government offers Canadians who aspire to a brighter, more secure, and prosperous future. Thank you.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Beaches East, sir. York South-Weston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I listened with some interest to my colleague's speech, and once again he has reiterated, and I want to ask him about this, the Conservative Party second story about the tax cuts on businesses, which is that the tax cuts on businesses resulted in greater profits. His colleague, the Minister of Finance, would suggest that that's not the case, that the tax cuts on businesses was to create jobs. You can't suck and blow at the same time. Either there's profits to be made in otherwise profitable corporations by lowering their tax burden, or they're going to create jobs. You can't do both. Which is it?
And the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, in fact, the honourable member is wrong. See, that is the core difference between us and them. We believe that the amount of wealth in a society can actually grow, and that by investment, there is more for everyone to go around. They believe that there is a finite, static amount of wealth in existence, and that the only way to give more to one is by taking away from another. The only way for one person to move up on the ladder is by pulling someone else down. The answer is that when you cut business taxes, you increase the return on investment for the investors, and that means they invest more because it is a more lucrative proposition. Who are these investors? They are pension funds. They are people who are retiring and using mutual funds in order to draw income for their families and for their kids and grandkids. How does this create jobs? It allows more capital so that businesses can hire, purchase new equipment, and create more economic activity, all of which puts people to work. So the answer is, when you lower business taxes, yes, you increase the return on investment to the pension funds and the mutual funds and the savings that our seniors have invested, and in the process, you make it possible for businesses to grow, hire more people, and expand opportunity.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Bonavista, Gander, Grand Falls, Windsor.
I can see why Newt Gingrich now likes to give a shout out to Canada after hearing something like that. He must really like us now. I have a quick question for the honourable member. He talks about the beauty of having the private sector involved in all of our pensions. Most notably, one place where I'm particularly fond of, and that's the CPP, the Canada Pension Plan, and its activities with the Investment Board, I think, does this country a good service. The private sector, no doubt, plays a major role, far major than we even know, but it's certainly, in his words, he says we should celebrate pensions involved in the private sector. My question to him is, since now he's been here 6 years, how come his pension is not involved in the private sector?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, I personally don't run the pension system around here, but I'm very interested to learn that the honourable member has all of a sudden taken an interest in it. I've never once heard a Liberal say that they wanted to cut their own entitlements. In fact, the entitlement has been the driving force behind the Liberal Party for approximately a generation. It is the uniting principle of the Liberal Party. Today we are talking about the pensions of Canadians, and the fact that we need a strong, robust business sector in order not only to employ people today, but to pay out the dividends that form the income of our pension plans. That requires a strong free enterprise economy, and that's what we're providing.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask the Parliamentary Secretary perhaps to amend his remarks. I think he mistakenly referred to a postal strike. I think he meant the postal lockout. But my question is to other urgent pension matters that I don't know that this government is dealing with, and I wish that we were able to look at pension issues and not be merely focused on this quite inadequate private sector pooled registered pension plan, but instead the urgent issue that pensions that were protected in the private sector be protected as secured creditors in bankruptcy, such that the workers at Nortel would not be wiped out by what's happened to them. This is a continual problem in our economy. I'd also like to ask why we're not acting to protect the pensions of people under the superannuation scheme, retired RCMP, military, and civil servants who lose pension benefits to their surviving spouse if they remarried after age 60. These, I think, are urgent issues, and I don't see the government addressing them.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, I thank the honourable member for raising these questions. They certainly are good ones. I would simply add that in order for any of our pensions, public or private, to function, we need a strong business sector generating the wealth to pay into those funds. And that is why we have created a vibrant business sector by signing 9 new free trade agreements, by lowering business taxes by a third, by cutting red tape, and by moving forward with a budget that's coming this spring that will reduce the cost and the burden of government so that we can unleash the strength of the free enterprise so that people can aspire to provide more for themselves, their families, and eventually for their retirements.
Resuming debate.